impressive, that it benchmarks really well, and then he released it. Me trying this out, I must be honest, was the first time that my sentiment towards Google search got lower. It was the first time. I looked at the capabilities of this, and it was so much better than Google that it's not even close. That people finding out about this will immediately recognize it's superior to Google search in not every way, but almost every way. It's so much more capable. It's so much faster. It's so much more concise. Even with Google's Gemini integration, Grok today is much more powerful. Let me give you a couple examples. One thing I wanted to figure out recently is if this guy named Bobby Kogan is conservative or liberal. Now, there's nothing particularly notable about him. He just writes about economic policy and about economics. So I just wanted to know his background and kind of what standpoint he comes from. So I searched his name and whether or not he's liberal or conservative in Google. The search term I used is Bobby Kogan liberal or conservative? And we have the Google search results here. A bunch of different links and information about this individual, which normally I could go in and kind of see what he's worked on, his past, his perspective, and try to piece that together. It has some bolded parts. It says that he works at a American Progressive Center, a left-leaning think tank. So right there, I can deduce that he's probably more on the liberal side, but I have to kind of dive in and do this myself. When I type this same question into Grok and I hit enter, this is what Grok provides me. It automatically scours the web, searching 20 different web pages, and then it comes to a consensus. If we look at what it does here and just read through this, you can see the advantages of this type of search engine. Bobby Kogan's political leanings can be inferred from his professional affiliations and work. Though he does not explicitly label himself as, quote, liberal or conservative in public statements, he is the senior director of the federal budget policy at the Center for American Progress, a well-known left-leaning think tank that advocates for progressive policies. His career includes significant roles in the Biden-Harris administration, such as advising the Office of Management and Budget on initiatives like the American Rescue Plan and Inflation Reduction Act, both which align with Democratic priorities. These associations suggest that Kogan's policy perspectives are more aligned with liberal and progressive ideologies, particularly on economic and budgetary issues. That said, his expertise focuses on technical aspects of federal budgeting, spending, revenues, deficit, and debt, rather than overtly ideological stances. His arguments often emphasize pragmatic outcomes, like reducing deficits or prioritizing aid to vulnerable populations, which could appeal across the spectrum, but are typically framed with progressive context. Without direct statements from Kogan declaring himself liberal or conservative, the evidence from his affiliations and work strongly point towards a liberal orientation. This is a great, nuanced, balanced perspective overviewing the topic, giving me a concise but informative answer on this subject. Now I know a little bit more about his context, what background he comes from, and it doesn't overtly label him as a liberal, it just says that it might point that direction because of his history. Compare the answers between the two. Grok is way better here. It's not even debatable. When I'm looking for this answer, Grok gave me the answer in a very good way. Google gave me a bunch of links and said, do the work yourself. Just as a part of normal human behavior, when you type in a question and you get those two different types of answers, which service do you think you're going to come back to? Which one do you think you're going to want to use in the future? The one that provided you with a bunch of links, or the one that provided you with a concise answer specifically to your question in a great format? This is part of the issue that Google's facing. Once people use these tools, they become immediately infatuated with them. They fall in love with them almost immediately. Another example I could give highlighting the differences in capabilities is simply asking different questions that require some level of deduction or some level of judgment. For example, I can ask the question, is S&P Global or Moody's a better buy today based on the different stocks and what they're doing? Simply put, which one is a better buy? I type that question into Google, and like you'd expect, I get similar questions, so it's prompting me for different ways to phrase the question. I get a link to some analysis going over it, which is a better buy between the two. I get the value investing Reddit subreddit. I get a bunch of different websites that might compare them financially, and that's about it. A bunch of links that, again, I'd have to go through and try to piece all of this together. When I look at the same type of question with Grok, I can hit something here called deep research, and then I can search the same exact question. I'll copy it in, no different than in Google, and let's see what Grok does. You can actually see it thinking about the question. It starts analyzing the comparisons here. We're browsing through S&P Global records, earnings reports, financial statements, We're browsing and scouring all across the web. It says right here that it's referencing 40 web pages, and Grok has an advantage where it goes into X and it actually looks at X posts. In some cases, it'll even do analysis where it references some of my own Twitter posts. But either way, it has some time period here where it's thinking about it, but it's kind of like a progress bar. It shows you what's going on. The way that this works is Grok right now is acting like an agentic search engine. In fact, instead of me going out and searching in Google, it's basically doing that for me. It's going out like an agent, searching all these different articles, using its LLM to quickly analyze them and see if it has pertinent information for the deep search that I'm doing. So this agentic layer of AI search is the new iteration to finding information about a particular topic. And you just see it going through all the logic here. It's incredible. Then we start to get the report here. This is everything that it's got through, thought through, all the different transcripts, all the different pages, and it builds out a compiled report from that. We have tables that it's building out where it measures the two different companies from each other, and then it has key citations that it lists. It gives you all these different overviews, financial performance, history of the company. You have segment analysis. For example, it breaks down S&P Global segment, breaks down Moody's business with Moody's Analytics and their investor services with their credit rating. So you can learn about these two companies in comparison and contrast to each other. Not everything it says I agree with. I think some of the conclusions it comes to are wrong, but that's only because it gathered information of other people's conclusions that I don't agree with. And that'd be the exact same thing if I dug through all these different pieces of information myself. If I went to Reddit Value Investing, I'd also have some people I disagree with. So it's not the perfect summary that will always fit with what you're doing, but it gives a very comprehensive overview of the different companies or whatever subject you're looking at. You can have it do a deep search about any medical question you have, and it will give you a detailed overview referencing all these journals and studies and everything about it. This isn't just applicable to investing or these specific use cases. This thing is incredible in a lot of different ways, and people are finding out about it. Now, I could go back and forth giving more and more examples of LLMs doing incredible things, offering far more value with lots of information searches than what Google's currently offering. Even with the integration with Gemini, it just feels lackluster compared to what you're getting with things like Grok or ChatGPT or any of the leading LLMs. They are far more advanced in their capabilities than simple Google searches. Now, I say this as someone that owns Google Search. There are going to be a lot of people that do a lot more searches in Grok, a lot more searches in ChatGPT than ever before. It's going to continue growing at a remarkable pace. What these CEOs are saying, that they need more capacity, they need more server capacity, GPUs, is true. As more and more people use these powerful search engines, they're going to be powered more by expensive GPUs. So it makes sense that all of them are spending so much money on building out infrastructure, cloud hosting, GPUs to run all this advanced AI logic. This isn't going to just be used with search engines, it's also going to be integrated into all different websites. But either way, right now, I strongly believe that this is going to take some market share from the market share pie of people wanting to find information. They're going to find it through LLMs. It's not just going to be through Google. And I say that as someone as a Google shareholder. There are going to be a lot of growth in this territory, a lot more people using LLMs in the future, especially when they get down the voice where you can just talk to it and converse with it. That's also going to be massive. The big question I have now is the growth of LLMs and things like Grok eventually mean the death of Google search, because that may not actually be the case. There might be some scenario where these type of things grow, but not necessarily at the expense of Google search. Maybe their growth isn't as much of an overlap as we think. Maybe people using Grok and LLMs and ChatGPT aren't necessarily lost customers for Google or Google search. That's a question that I've been looking at over the past month. And I think this comes down to a question that I've been asking for a long period of time. A question about the basic assumptions made on Google search since the beginning. The assumptions made so far is that Google search has had this dominant monopoly in information, in searches. And that's a premise that I don't know if I fully believe. I've questioned this for some time, but I'm not convinced that Google search has ever been a dominant monopoly. I think they've always been highly competitive with many other opportunities to find information, to find products, to find things to search. For example, the way that analysts look at the search market is basically like this. If we look at Statista here, one of these websites, You have Google search right here with their 93%, 85%, right? They have this market share, but market share all comes down to how you define the market. For example, the way that all these analysts are defining the market is through Google, Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, and then 2 Chinese search engines. That's the market that Google search competes with. And that's what's been relayed over and over again for the past 10 years. Google has this nice 90% market share of the search industry. So again, we have this defining of the search market share, and we have it repeated all over a place. You've seen graphics like this, 92% market share for Google. Bing has 3%, and then we have other ones mixed in there. But Google basically owns the world with the search market. But this is a premise that's frankly just wrong. The way that these analysts have carved up the market share for Google is wrong. This isn't an accurate reflection of reality at all. People just accept it for some reason. They say, oh yeah, there's the Google market share. If it's on this nice pie chart, it must be true. People accept it because it's in a nice chart here as well. Google has 90% of the search market. None of this is an accurate reflection of how humans interact and how we've searched in the past. This is just a way of analysts trying to carve up a market in a very arbitrary and I think incorrect way. For example, one of the biggest search engines in the world is owned by a company called Amazon. Amazon owns 50% of the shopping business online. Amazon has a massive, wide, tall search box at the top of their website where people every single day, they get on their app, they get on their desktop website, and they search for products, they search for different things to buy, and they buy them. How is that not competition to Google? They own a dominant website with a dominant search box that sells hundreds of billions of dollars worth of product every single year. Google has tried to make money selling products online as well. You can search products through Google and get ads and different things for different products or affiliate links. Google earns money through those search results. So Amazon has been this competitor to Google for decades. Amazon for over 20 years has been competing with Google fiercely over search, over clicks, over sales. But yet for some reason, the search market doesn't include Amazon. Well, why not? Amazon faced them as competitors when they're small. Amazon continued to grow, taking more and more search volume. If you look at the traffic that Amazon has on its website, it's grown immensely. Amazon, by every reason possible, is a huge competitor to Google when it comes to search. Products are a huge part of search. It's a major category that Amazon owns. Take a look at some of the other competitors to online search with products. You have search engines that only make up 42% of product results in and of itself. You have Walmart, you have YouTube, which is very much a search engine. People search questions in, they search for products, they search for reviews, they search for content, and they get results. That is very much a search engine. That's one that Google owns. So you could combine that with Google's overall market share. Then we have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Now, this isn't even the only ways that people search. There's many more. The amount of websites that people go to where they search for information and they find different pieces of content, they get fed ads, they find products is substantial. Not only do you have Google and YouTube, which Google owns, you have Amazon for products, you have Reddit, which people are searching in all the time, one of the most popular websites in the world. You have Pinterest, which people searching continually for visual-driven stuff. You have Quora, which people search in for questions and answers. You have Wikipedia. You have TikTok, which people continually go to, more increasingly now for different tips, DIY stuff. You have Instagram, which Meta owns. That is very much a search engine. You have Facebook, which again has another search engine in it. One of the top things on the Facebook page is a search box people go to. They search and they find communities and posts and people. You have Twitter, you have Yelp, you have TripAdvisor, you have Goodreads, you have WebMD, Lifehacker, Wirecutter, Consumer Reports, Etsy, BuzzFeed, on and on and on. All these websites have search boxes that people use daily. But none of these companies are ever counted in towards the search market share. So the entire premise that Google has had at any point in time, this dominant 90+% market share of search is in many cases wrong. And it's a wrong premise to begin with. Google has always been highly competitive with many other websites, some of them large and small, with search market share. So we have another predicament or question for Google investors, and that is LLM searches just another way of competing with Google where Google will grow alongside it, or will it actually replace Google searches? Here's how I currently view this playing out. This is my thoughts of the future, and there's no guarantees if this is how it will work, but this is how I think it's most likely to work out. I think LLM searches are very powerful. Having these AI agents that can compile all of this data and give you a nice write-up, I think is just an incredible tool, and it's going to grow substantially in the future. I think this is going to be a huge way of information gathering, learning about subjects, and all of that type of stuff. So LLM searches, I think someday, in combination, could be bigger than Google search today. There is an increasing demand and growth of information gathering, demand for people to want to know about things that will continue its long-term secular trend into the future. As more people get internet connections, as more people become educated, they'll use this type of information gathering. But I think the overlap with Google search in particular, there's some overlap, but I don't think it's a full overlap. I don't think LLM searches completely replace everything that you do in Google. In particular, Google is the king of local searches. Anytime you want to know something about a restaurant around you, movie theater times, anything going on around you, people have a strong preference for Google search. LLMs aren't really great on that front. They're good at scouring through the internet and doing write-ups, but they're not good if you want to know what time a store closes. They just don't have the same local information. Google has monopolized that type of local information. They've integrated it into maps. They've integrated it into all different aspects of their business. And that's still very valuable. I think that's going to be very difficult for LLMs to take that aspect of the company. And that local information also, I believe, has a huge portion of the ad revenue that Google gets. So I think it's going to be true that LLM searches will take some different questions and queries that would go into Google search normally. But I also think that LLM searches simply just expand the capabilities of people's searches. They build upon it. They make it so that there's a whole new category of searches that didn't exist prior to now. Overall, I believe that Google is in a position that even though LLMs are incredible, they're impressive, they will take some market share here from some searches, I think overall, investors may be surprised that Google search continues to grow, that the revenue of it continues to grow. It might have some ebbs and flows like Meta does with advertising dollars, but overall, the organic growth of wanting to organize the web's information is still going to be valuable. And the use cases from Google search and LLMs are still different. LLMs are great, they're powerful, but they are different. So I think when looking at Google stock today, the risk has increased for this company. I do think it's slightly less predictable than it was a couple years ago. My sentiment has changed slightly more to the negative when looking at Grok, but I also believe the company, still with all of that factored in, is undervalued. The stock is already priced for this poor sentiment. It's trading as though it's already dying, while it's still growing faster than the majority of companies in the market. And this is the type of scenario that these companies get into frequently, where they end up having excess returns, far above the market. I think that's the most likely outcome from here. That's been the case every single time people have talked about the death of Google, which they do continually. We saw it happen in 2022. People talked about the death of Google, the stock went up. We see more dips along the way, the stock goes up. We've seen it all throughout history. When investors overwhelmingly become bearish on this quality of a company with this many assets, unless this is the time that Google really does get hugely disrupted, the stock will continue to go upwards. So as of right now, I am still holding my position in Google. I haven't sold any shares. I'll take a look at this company again when it's above $200 per share, 210. I might take some gains off the table at that point, but as of right now, I'm fully invested. So that's my thoughts on it. Have a good weekend. See you in the next one.
Oh, man. I should have finished those deep fried chicken wings from last